the Caucasus is finally turning away from Russia. A sensation from Baku. Azerbaijan has set a course for closer ties with NATO. Thus, the country's army will be brought up to alliance standards. This was announced by the head of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, at a meeting with NATO representatives.
The head of state emphasized that the Azerbaijani army is being brought in line with NATO standards and in this context is closely cooperating with the Turkish army.
The event was attended by representatives from 15 countries including Turkey, Greece, Hungary, the Netherlands, Portugal and Spain. According to Aliyev, Azerbaijan has achieved its main goal since gaining independence at the beginning of the last century, the liberation of its lands from occupation. Now, the leader of Azerbaijan has stated that the process of modernizing their army will continue. In this regard, Aliyev mentioned the expansion of relations between Baku and NATO. He also pointed out the vast opportunities for the entire region that have opened up after the peace agreement with Armenia, which was brokered by the White House. And this improvement in relations between Baku and Yerevan has seriously infuriated the Kremlin. Propagandists immediately came out with new statements.
Ilham Aliyev, at the celebrations marking the anniversary of the Azerbaijan Academy of Sciences, delivered a keynote speech about the future of Armenia. The great ethnographer and historian is preparing the Armenians for a return to the fold of the brotherly Turkic world. Everything will be done gently and with love. This last claim looks especially amusing from our northern latitudes. Any member of the diaspora, when caught off guard, immediately finds themselves with two homelands, one of the first and one of the second freshness.
The rhetoric of rapprochement between Baku and the West, while simultaneously distancing from Moscow, had been observed before as well. For example, Aliyev stated in an interview that in 1920, the Russian Bolshevik army invaded and occupied Azerbaijan. The president of the country also acknowledged that relations between Moscow and Baku have deteriorated. We
are not responsible for the worsening of relations. We respond constructively and within the law. But we never show any signs or manifestations of aggression or disrespect towards us. And
yet another blow to the Kremlin. Azerbaijan has come to Ukraine's defense. Support for the Ukrainian armed forces with weapons and ammunition is becoming a reality. The Kremlin is losing an entire region, and this is only the beginning of a global collapse. All the details are coming up in the report.
Azerbaijan may lift the embargo on arms supplies to Ukraine and send its Soviet equipment to the front, and the media has reported that Azerbaijan is launching serial production of artillery ammunition for Ukraine.
Azerbaijan has accumulated a considerable amount of weaponry over the years, both from the Soviet era and from the arms that Azerbaijan purchased while preparing to deoccupy its territory. To say that there is a huge amount of weaponry there, considering the scale of our front and the way we wage war, of course not. But for Azerbaijan, these numbers are quite substantial and impressive.
After the Russians shot down an Azerbaijani plane over Grozny and refused to admit responsibility for what they had done, Azerbaijan took up the path of war. President Aliyev publicly sided with Ukraine and called Russia an occupier.
And I think this resonates with the aspirations of the Ukrainian people to never agree to occupation. That is the main advice. That is what we did.
I think that in Azerbaijan itself, people remember very well who brought war to their land. Formally, yes, it was Armenia, the occupation of Nagorno-Karabakh, but it was the Russian Federation that provided military, political, and financial support. And moreover, who controlled the occupied Nagorno-Karabakh through so-called peacekeepers? Well, the Russians.
At the SCO forum in Beijing, Aliyev shook Putin's hand very coldly and demonstratively refused to talk to him.
This was an unprecedented act against our people. We are not responsible for the deterioration of relations. We respond constructively and lawfully, but we will never tolerate any signs or manifestations of aggression or disrespect towards us.
Russia too did not lag behind and began to brutally crack down on members of the Azerbaijani diaspora. The security forces even killed 2 of them.
Some of the victims had their ribs broken. There are those who suffered spinal and internal organ injuries. If Azerbaijan had not intervened, the number of victims could have been hundreds of times higher. In
Baku, several journalists from a pro-Russian publication were arrested, directly accused of having ties to the FSB and Russian intelligence. They were said to have been conducting agent-based intelligence activities on Azerbaijani territory in the interests of the Russian Federation. So, in other words, this was a kind of asymmetric response.
But the real blow below the belt was Azerbaijan and Armenia signing a peace agreement in the United States. They completely ignored Russia as a permanent partner and mediator. Russia's influence in the Caucasus is fading away.
Armenia and Azerbaijan commit to permanently cease hostilities, open up trade, establish transport links, diplomatic relations, and also to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
The Russian Federation feels its position weakening, feels that it is essentially unable to influence Aliyev or Azerbaijan in any way. And we see that it has started shelling gas infrastructure used by Azerbaijan already on the territory of Ukraine in the Odessa region.
Now Russia has begun shelling Azerbaijani oil depots and gas distribution stations in Ukraine. So far, Azerbaijan has been providing Ukraine exclusively with humanitarian aid, but everything could change very quickly.
At the moment, we have provided humanitarian and financial aid totaling 40 million euros, and this assistance is ongoing. It is completely transparent and purely humanitarian in nature. We have implemented several social infrastructure projects in the city of Irpin and will continue to do so. You know that Ukrainian children regularly visit us as guests. We will do everything in our power to help.
According to insider information, there could be several hundred units there. Not grads, but smerch systems. I think there are about 80 of them. In fact, such a reinforcement with equipment in a specific section of the front could significantly strengthen our positions. Plus, let's put it this way, there are also hundreds of pieces of military equipment of Soviet design, like BTRs and BMPs, which would also be quite useful for Ukraine.
Given the ongoing attempts by the Russians to harm Azerbaijan, Azerbaijani weapons may soon appear on the Ukrainian front lines.
Also stabbed Putin in the back. The country's Prime Minister, Nikol Pashinyan, stated during his speech at the 5th Tbilisi Silk Road Forum that the positive dialogue with Turkey gives hope that the border could be opened in the near future.
We are not only politically but also technically ready even today to ensure the transit of cargo trucks through Turkey to Azerbaijan and vice versa. On the territory of Armenia, the roads and border infrastructure are ready for this.
Pashinyan also stated that in the near future, pipelines and power lines will be laid across Armenia from Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan, as well as between Yerevan, Baku, and Ankara, and that rail and road communications will be established.
This major project is important not only from an economic standpoint, but also as a step toward peace and stability. One of its outcomes will be the opening of a peaceful road connecting Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan.
Moreover, Armenia appears to be setting its course toward the European Union, the end of the dictator's imperial dreams. Where does this drive come from, and how will Russia, which can no longer control the post-Soviet countries, respond to this move? Find out in our report.
The Armenian government will continue to pursue a pro-European course despite certain political forces insisting on closer ties with Russia. This was stated by Armenian Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan in an interview with Deutsche Welle. Quite a lot of time has passed, but relations between Azerbaijanis and Armenia, I think, are moving in the right direction. And there are very serious negotiations underway. And by the beginning of this year, fundamental agreement had already been reached on the main points of the peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Mirzoyan also spoke about the negotiations with Azerbaijan and the beginning of the process to determine the general position of the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And then, in August of this year, at the initiative of President Trump, a meeting was held in Washington between the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia, during which very important documents and declarations were signed, including one that was initialed. A peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia was initialed. For the first time in 35 years, Kazakh grain was delivered from Azerbaijan to Armenia. A positive trend toward peace was also noted by the President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan assured that Armenia is technically ready, even today, to provide transit for cargo trucks through its territory from Turkey to Azerbaijan and back. And just yesterday, the leader of Azerbaijan, the head of state, officially announced that Azerbaijan is opening up new transit opportunities for Armenia through its own national territory. Shortly after, we became acquainted with the official statement from the Armenian side. The leader of Armenia stated that Armenia's territory is also open for transit shipments from various countries to Azerbaijan. Regarding Russia, the head of the Armenian Foreign Ministry refers to it as the main partner in the economy and trade. But at the same time, the politician points out that there have been many issues on which Armenia and Russia have reached agreements. But on many other issues, the countries have still not reached a consensus.
Democracy is our choice. We are deepening our relations with the European Union, with the United States of America, that is, with our strategic partners. Cooperation with other countries, this is our sovereign choice, our decision. So either normal partners respect each other and each other's decisions, or this partnership needs to be renewed.
According to Mararat Mirzayan, even before submitting an official application and receiving a response from the European Union, Armenia had already begun working with it, significantly deepening bilateral relations. In addition, negotiations are underway regarding several new documents. Work on a new partnership program has been completed. It will be signed within the next 3 months.
Nikol Pashinyan also commented on Armenian-Turkish relations, stating that they are on the right track. He also emphasized that he considers his recent visit to Turkey very successful and invited Erdogan to participate in the European Political Community Summit. And Erdogan himself is also delivering a powerful blow regarding Russian oil. The country's largest oil refinery is massively switching to non-Russian oil after harsh sanctions from the US, EU, and UK against the Kremlin's energy sector. Turkey is now trying to diversify its supplies to avoid the risks associated with trading with Russia, which is financing its war against Ukraine. According to Reuters, one of the country's largest oil refineries, Sakarya, which belongs to an Azerbaijani company, recently purchased 4 batches of crude oil from Iraq, Kazakhstan, and other producers. And that's not all. Gazprom has also come under fire, a sharp turn by Ankara. Western media are shocked. Russia may lose its last major European gas market in Turkey. Thus, by ramping up production and increasing imports from the US, Ankara could meet more than half of its gas needs by the end of 2028.
Right now, Turkey has several options: domestic production, pipeline gas from Azerbaijan, and an increasing number of LNG terminals. Thus, the country is no longer dependent on Russian gas. This situation gives Turkey a strong negotiating position, allowing it to push for lower prices on Russian gas, since Russia has no alternative markets for these volumes.
Trump is betting on Erdogan. It is the Turkish leader who can put an end to the war and rein in Putin. Is Erdogan ready to play big and change the course of history? Sensational details coming up.
Trump, in his opinion, named the president who could potentially help to find a solution to Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine.
Putin respects him, and he is my friend.
Recep Tayyip Erdogan is actively involved in peacekeeping efforts to end Russia's war against Ukraine. He positions his country as a reliable mediator. The first negotiations after the start of the full-scale war took place in Istanbul in the spring of 2022. Several rounds of talks between representatives of the Kremlin and Ukraine also took place in Turkey in the summer of 2025.
Turkey has always advocated for a diplomatic path to achieve this goal. Now, after 3 years of immense suffering, an opportunity has finally arisen. We hope that the negotiations in Istanbul will open a new chapter.
Turkish mediation was also crucial and played an important role in the Black Sea Grain Initiative, the so-called Grain Corridor, which was absolutely vital for global food security. The Turkish company Baykar continues to integrate advanced Ukrainian-made engines into its combat drones, further enhancing their operational effectiveness. At Baykar's plant in Istanbul, Ukrainian engineers are undergoing internships. In the future, they will form a team to work at the facility in Ukraine, which, during its construction, is constantly under attack from Russia.
Iron, concrete, and buildings can be restored. What truly matters is our will and our faith in this project. No missile can damage our friendship.
Turkey's support for Ukraine is not limited to Bayraktars and mediation.
We have demonstrated our solidarity with Ukraine in practice by providing concrete assistance in political, economic, humanitarian, and technical spheres.
Turkey closed the straits in the Black Sea to Russian warships, which significantly limited the aggressor's capabilities in the southern direction, and provided Ukraine with missiles with a range of 20 to 70 kilometers for destroying ground-moving targets.
For 500 days, the Ukrainian people have been defending the territorial integrity of their country.
The year 2025 changed a lot in Ankara's relations with Moscow. The Kremlin feels the distancing of its old ally, realizing that Putin has fewer and fewer supporters. And here comes another blow from Erdogan. By the end of 2028, Turkey plans to meet more than half of its natural gas needs through its own production and imports from the United States. The Kremlin understands that this means a loss of revenue for them and a reduction in Russian supplies to the European market.
We won't run out of gas. We have more gas than anyone else in the world.
We have it, but do we need it? But it's not just about gas. Turkey has implemented a decision to build 3 different types of warships, which will take the country's navy another step forward. Turkey plans to develop one of the aircraft carriers together with Spain. In terms of size, it matches American nuclear aircraft carriers. In the summer of 25, Turkey joined the drone coalition led by Latvia and the United Kingdom. Currently, the coalition already includes 20 countries providing military assistance to Ukraine in this area. In 2025, the coalition members pledged to allocate €2.075 billion in support of Ukraine and have already contributed €180 million to the Joint Procurement Fund.
Also, just as we declared our rejection of the war 3 years ago when the conflict began, today we are determined to do everything possible to end the war through negotiations. In doing so, we continue our steadfast support for Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence.
Turkey has declared its readiness to participate in the reconstruction of Ukraine. Projects are planned in the fields of energy, energy efficiency, social housing, and water supply.
Turkey is interested in ensuring that Ukraine controls the northern coast of the Black Sea and that Russia does not appear there. In addition, Turkey is interested in the reconstruction of Ukraine. It is a huge market. In addition, Turkey sees an opportunity to intensify the development of its military technical industry, considering that it can receive additional resources from selling its weapons. All of this together creates a solid foundation for being interested in this process.
Turkey, as a NATO country, was ready to send its troops to Ukraine to guarantee the implementation of peace agreements. Naturally, this initiative was condemned in the Kremlin. Officially, Ankara supports Ukraine's territorial integrity, but tries to maintain a balance between the sides. Turkey is still trying to avoid joining the Western sanctions, which, in its view, allows it to remain an effective channel of communication between the Kremlin and Ukraine. And what do you think about the latest developments? Share your opinion in the comments, like the video, and stay up to date with the main news. There's more to come.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.